Gauragradanya Ganagota Goloruharam Gauranga Gurachama Gopyara Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami. Dhamma Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachia Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Emona Gauranga Vidoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se hoya mara prana re. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya, Prema-bhakti-candrika Padama Pumarta. Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Srikriya Kripaya Jari Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Rishayustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunathapta Brajabala Vapahimam Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evachan Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Krishna Namamrita Vashivaktra Chandra Prabhadvasta Tamo Baraya Gauranga Deva Anucharaya Namo Namah Shira Narottamaya. Again and again I offer my obeisances unto Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He's indeed a true follower of Lord Gauranga Deva. The nectarian shower of the holy name of Krishna radiating from the moon of his mouth destroys the darkness of ignorance. So we're continuing with Prema-bhakti-candrika with the fifth song and the eighth stanza, and this is our seventh session on this particular stanza. We're going to have at least one more, maybe two. I just realized today. Let's look at this. This song is called Rāgānugā-bhakti Riti, a glimpse in the path of loving attachment. And this is this stanza we've been trying to get past. Yugala charana sevi nirantara e bhavi anuragi taki bashadoi. Shadane bhaviba jaha siddha-deha pabashtaha ragapatira e se upai. I will constantly desire to serve the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna with loving attachment. Whatever I contemplate during the practice of devotional service will certainly be achieved upon perfection in a spiritual body. This is a method on the path of attachment. So we've been discussing about our Siddha Swarup and about Ekadas Bhav, about Manjari Bhav. How do we develop this Ekadas Bhav? What is our tradition in Gaudiya Vaishnavism? And again and again and again, wherever we look, we're finding that the tradition is that is through the chanting of the holy name in connection with Guru. Tate Krishna Bhaji Kori Guru Sevan, that our Krishna Bhajan is our Guru Seva. And that's all that's given. in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line. This verse today, the phrase siddha-deha pavastaha, is cited by some people to indicate a siddha-pranali, or the giving of a practice of meditating on one's ekadas bhav, these 10 different activities, 10 different aspects of ourself in the spiritual world, which we went over already. So I'd like to look back a little bit. We're speaking in a general way, in a philosophical way, and I understand this is a little thick philosophy, but it's important. And we should just try to hear and understand it to the best of our ability. So I'm reviewing a little bit from the Patanjali Yoga-sutras, where it's defined what is yoga. And again, we're practicing bhakti yoga or nam yoga. Yoga's citta, vritti nirodha. That yoga means to still the restless mind. That's what yoga is. And in the commentary on the first verse of Yoga Sutra, and Yoga Sutra is an important thing. Rupa Goswami, in his Upadeshamrita, he paraphrases or he directly quotes in some cases from the Yoga Sutras. Yoga Sutra is a very basic philosophical treatise which can be used for any type of meditation, any type of yoga. And so this commentary on the first verse of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which we've been speaking about, speaks about 5 different levels of the mind: Kshipta, Mudha, Vikshipta, Ekagra, Niruddha. You can see on the board there, and how we want to come to Niruddha, where we become totally absorbed in the object of our meditation, which is defined in the Gaur Ganesh, the Gaur Govinda Smarana Archana Padati, Mano Madhyestito Mantra Mantra Madhyestitam Manaha. When the mind and the mantra, Mano Mantra Samayutam, the Dijapa Lakshanam, they become one. This is our goal. And some people do this through a process which Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Bhaktivinode Thakur both indicate as being somewhat mechanical, where someone tries to imagine or picture themselves, their spiritual body. And we're not against that, but it's not the natural path. The natural path, which is given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and our acharyas, is a path of Nam. So Nirodha, this 5th stage, this 5th level of the mind in the process of yoga, where the mind is totally controlled, totally absorbed in the object of meditation, that's Kirtaniya Sadahadi. And when we come to at least to Ekagra, where we become a little bit one-pointed, our mind becomes sattvic, then, as we discussed in our last session, then we can witness the states of citta or consciousness. And in our last session, we did a bit of an overview from the 13th verse in the 8th chapter of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Madhurya Kadambini, where he speaks about ahankara and how ahankara has 2 aspects. Ahankara means false ego. Ahankara means ahamta, the self-identification, this is me, and mamata, this is mine. And how that becomes transformed, how that is in material consciousness, and how that becomes transformed in spiritual consciousness. This is the nature of our citta. And so in the Prema-bhakti-candrika of Jagadananda Pandit, we went over how he describes when someone comes with this, when the living entity is trying to figure out who they are. Sometimes they're taking birth as an animal, sometimes as a plant, sometimes as an insect. But when they come in contact with the devotee and they begin to understand who they are, Nija Tattva Jani are, then they begin to cry to Krishna. Kendi Boli Ohe Krishna Amitava Das Tomara Charanas Chadi Hoila Sarvanas. They begin to cry. And at that time, that's our siddha-pranali mantra. Trinada Pisa Nichina, that crying in connection with Guru. So we discussed that a little bit in some of our previous sessions, and how there's a gradual development, a gradual destruction of the Mahamta and Mamata of the false ego and a gradual development of the spiritual ego, and how that goes from anishita bhajana kriya, where someone is, their bhajan's not fixed and they're fluctuating so much, it goes to bhajana, nishita bhajana kriya. And at that point, their bhajan and their consciousness becomes pervaded with spirituality. And they begin to meditate on the Lord in a little deeper way. And then comes nishta. And at that point of nishta, these other subject matters of ahamta, mamata are still there, but they're just like a shadow. And then through ruchi and asakti and bhav, all the way up to prema, this false ego, this ahankara, is gradually destroyed, the citta, and we come to understand who we are. So let's look a little at something. Here's a beautiful comment from Bhaktivinode Maharaj I'd like to share. Gorni Taipa would just raise a question. I heard that yoga means connection. The word yoga comes from the word yug, which we have a word in English, yoke. Yoke means to connect. A yoke is something that a cowherd person uses to connect a bull to a plow. So it literally means to connect. So yeah, yoga means to connect. And it's defined by Patanjali that yoga means when our citta becomes calm, and we can, then we make that connection. That's real yoga. And if we make that relationship, then our mind naturally becomes still. But until our mind becomes still, we can't make that relationship. That's going to be our discussion today. Let's look at something Bhaktivinode Maharaj has said. And this is from his book, Healing Prayers. What we are is not who we are. What a beautiful statement to begin. What we are is not who we are. Our name, our lifestyle, our body are all very secondhand details. These superfluous details come after a very long chain of events, some lasting for thousands of years. And in that fantastic series of events, we had all sorts of names, practiced a myriad of lifestyles, and carried a universe of different bodies. The constant that pierced through each of these experiences was an eternal awareness. As St. Francis once commented, he said, what we're searching for is that which is searching. Think about that for a moment. What we're looking for, what we're searching for is that which is searching. We're looking for consciousness. This eternal awareness, as Bhaktivinode Maharaj is saying here. An awareness that traversed from body to body into the body we currently foster. And this awareness will continue on indefinitely. It'll inherit new names, new identities, and new bodies for an eternity. To assume that this short-lived body or this short-lived name, or even worse, to assume these short-lived emotions or short-lived problems are who we are, we're completely missing the point. If rain fell on you, would you assume that you're now the rain? When you use a computer, have you become the computer? In the same way, pure awareness uses the human body. Its infinite breadth passes through us and processes the world through our eyes, ears, nose, our touch, our heart, and creativity. And even though this body comes alive in its presence, it would be impractical to believe that we are this individual. We are still such an eternal awareness. As such, we should not confuse this life of identification as our true self. We're so much more. This life is something like a costume contest in which you're trying to decide. It's Halloween. There's a Halloween party at the college today, and I'm invited, and what am I going to dress? Maybe I'll dress up like a wizard, or maybe I'll dress up like a philosopher, or maybe I'll dress up like an angel or a devil or this or that. And we dress up in a certain way, and we identify with that in a gross or subtle way. In a party, hopefully we don't think that this costume is me, and that when we walk away that I am the devil. I had that devil costume, and that's actually me. Hopefully, only a mad person would think like that. So in this verse in Prema-bhakti-candrika, Narottam Das Thakur is speaking about this consciousness, sadaneva vibhajaha siddha-deha pavataha, that whatever I'm contemplating during my path, on this path of bhakti, that's what I'm going to achieve. This is yoga. This is citta. This is our consciousness. Citta is the most subtle element of our antakarana, or our internal senses. And one of the qualities of citta that I want to speak about today is described by Srila Sridhar Swami's Bhavarta-dipika commentary on the third canto of the Bhagavatam. He says, Bhagavad Bimba Grahitvam, that citta has a quality, it's like a bimba. Bimba means a reflection or a mirror. And this is one reason why association is so very, very, very important. Whatever we associate with, we're going to define ourselves in that same way. So yoga's citta vritti nirodha, that if we want to come to the point of nirodha, where we control the mind, which is real yoga, we have to control citta vritti. We have to control that citta. And the verse after this in Yoga-sutras describes this is how we realize our siddha-pranali, our siddha-deha. Now, we'll come back to that a little later, either today or maybe tomorrow. And I want to speak a little more, though, about our process, because sometimes devotees, they become confused and they think we don't really have a process. I mean, you just chant Hare Krishna, right? And then that's just it. And, I'm supposed to realize my siddha-deha, my swarup, by just chanting Hare Krishna. And some devotees lose some faith in that, and they think, oh, I have to do something else. I have to add something else. So I'd like to look in a very foundational way at the Yoga-sutras. And again, the Yoga-sutras are something that can be applied to any type of yoga. This is still the first chapter. We were speaking on the first couple of verses. Now I'm going to jump ahead to verses 30 to 33. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Vyadi Syanya Sangsaya Pramada Alasya Virata Bhranti Darshana Labda Bhumi Katva Anavasti Tatvani Chitta Vikshepaha Te Antarayaha. So he speaks about 9 different aspects of inattention. So this, we should understand. We want to understand what is our siddha-deha. We want to follow Narottam Das Thakur's instructions here, sadhani bhavibijaha siddha-dehi pavataha, that we meditate clearly. So, but what's the problem? The problem is, as we heard previously in the Yoga-sutras, there's different stages of the yoga, of the process of yoga of the mind. We're probably at the platform of kshipta. Our mind is very, very disturbed. Maybe we're at the platform of mudha, which is the mind in the mode of ignorance, stupefied. At best, maybe sometimes we come to the point of vikshipta where we're distracted, but we have a few moments or something. And we have that moment and we think, wow, I chanted, I heard the mantra for 3 seconds, for 5 seconds. I actually did this. I'm like becoming really advanced. We might think like that. So this yoga's citta vritti, we want to fix our mind. We want for it to become nirodha, to become very, very firm. But there's this problem. There's this inattentiveness. So he speaks about 9 different aspects of it. Vyadi, which means some sickness. We become sick. When you become sick, you can't think about anything else. When you're going to start vomiting, even you just got to really pass urine or stool or something, or you're really hungry, and somebody wants to have a really deep conversation with you. Prabhu, let's talk. But I really got to use the bathroom. I really got to have something to eat, and then we can talk. So this vyadi, when I'm really sick, it's a big cause for inattentiveness. Sthanya, some mental laziness. Samsaya means that I have some doubt, which is partly why we're giving so much discussion on these things today, because we should understand the Siddhanta, this philosophy. And then samsayatma vinashati, our samsaya will be destroyed. Pramada means there may be some lack of enthusiasm, alasya, some ignorance, some craving for sense gratification, some granti darshan, some false perception of ourself, some despair, which is caused by failure to concentrate. We think, oh, I can't do this. I failed so many times. I've been practicing Krishna consciousness for a whole 2 weeks, or for a whole 2 years, or a whole 20 years, or a whole 40 years. But in perspective with the fact that I may have been here in this material world for trillions and trillions and quadrillions of births, this is just a brief second. And therefore, one of the principal, most important qualities of bhakti, Rupa Goswami begins with in his Upadeshamrita, is that utsaha nischaya dharyat, these 3 qualities: enthusiasm, patience, and confidence. Otherwise, we become distracted. We become absorbed in our own failures. And we identify those failures with myself. Just like sometimes a person who's a drunkard thinks, I am a drunkard, or a child molester or a criminal, I am a criminal, I am a this and that. But we're not those things. And the first step to healing our consciousness is to not identify with those things. Some false perception of ourselves, some despair caused by failure, constant, and unsteadiness, anavastita, citta vikshepate antarayaha. So these are the distractions, the citta vikshepa, to our knowledge. And the next verse goes on to explain dukkha dharmanasya angame jayatva svasa prasvasaha vikshepa saha bhuvaha. That along with those distractions come some of our dear friends, grief, despondency, and sometimes even trembling of the body and irregular breathing. We start crying, we become very, very depressed, we become very, very disturbed. This is the opposite of what we want. These are the things which are keeping us from fixing our chitta, fixing our mind. So how can we overcome these? The Yoga Sutra goes on to explain, tat prasida artam ekatattva abhyasaha, that when we begin to concentrate on ekatattva, on a single truth, where does that truth come from? That truth comes from Sadhu Guru. Maitri karuna mudito pekshanam sukaduka punya apunya vishayanam bhavanantaha chitta prasadanam. That to have a calm mind, to have a mind which is not disturbed, that is attained through association, by cultivating some friendship toward people who are happy, by having compassion for people who are unhappy, by delighting in virtuous things and being indifferent toward wicked persons. So association is everything. Again and again and again throughout our shastras and our bhakti shastras, this association is established. And this is the purpose of the guru-disciple relationship, that what are we here for anyway? Just to get a spiritual name so I can be accepted and get some respect in the society? No. The function of the disciple is to be anubhav. We're following the mood of Gurudev. And through association with Gurudev, through doing the sadhana that I've been given by Gurudev, then I can come close to him. And this is the purport of this verse from Mantrarnava, which we were just showing, Manasamharanam Socham Manam Mancharta Chintanam, that, Mano Madhyestitam Mantra Madhyestitamana, that the mind and the mantra become one. So in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatana Goswami quote this verse from Mantrarnava, which I was starting to keep in my mind. Manasamharanam socham manam mantarta chintanam avyagyatvam anirvedo japa sampati hetava. So this is what someone gets from japa, from proper japa. The first thing is manasamharanam, that my mind becomes controlled. Socham, I develop some purity. Monam, there's some silence. My mind finally shuts up. And then after my mind finally shuts up, I turn the volume down on the radio. The mantra to chintanam. Then I can begin to understand the meaning of the mantra. Because while my mind is going so loud, today I have to cook. Oh my God, Maharaj is going to come for lunch today. What am I going to make for him? Oh, maybe I'll make lasagna. No, I made lasagna last time. What should I do this time? And we're just thinking, oh, I don't have ingredients for that. And we're in Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And we're thinking olives, pasta. We're thinking so many different things because our mind is shouting at us. So when we become silent, when the mind shuts up, we can control the mind by making the mind one with the mantra, understanding that mantra, not just the words or the meaning of the words externally, but the bhav of that mantra, which we get by rendering service. Shushusho Shadadana Shabasudeva Kataruchi Shammahat Sevaya Viprapunya Tirtana Sevana. By serving Krishna's devotee, by observing that devotee, and trying to please that devotee, then their qualities come to us. And then we begin to develop some eagerness for chanting. And this is a basic principle of bhakti. So let's contemplate this a little bit more about inattentiveness and the importance of this in understanding and realizing our swarup, our siddha-deha. And I wanted to go on a little bit of a journey. We started off in the Yoga-sutras. I want to also visit Bhaktivinode Thakur's Harinam Chintamani quite a bit here today. So, Japa Kali, Manake Eka Drabhava Lao. That Bhaktivinode, he says that when at the time of Japa, Manake Ekagrabhave Lao, the same point is made, Ekagra. We have to make our mind one with Krishna's name. We have to concentrate. Chitte Sudha, our chitta, our consciousness should be purely fixed. Tak Vritta Kata Nahi Kao. Just completely fixed on Krishna, and not, we should avoid speaking uselessly. Sometimes we have to say something. Please, can you turn off the light or open the door or something? We're not machines, but we should avoid speaking useless things. Did you hear about the latest news about Trump's court case? So in the middle of our japa, it's not the time. But namarta chintaha sada dayashraya koro namete dada kori Krishna nama smara. We should contemplate chintaha, namarta, what is the goal, the purpose of my chanting. And we should be very dharya, we should be very, very patient. Such a very, very important thing. And while we're chanting the holy name, we should be thinking of Krishna's name. We have to bring ourselves to what we're doing. And then our mind and the mantra can become one. If and when our mind and the mantra become one, at that time, we can begin to realize our spiritual identity. And no matter what process you're doing, whether you're practicing siddha-pranali or you're just taking shelter of the holy name, this is what you're going to have to do. I heard from one of my friends, an older sadhu, many years ago, one disciple Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in the Gaudiya Math, how there was one young man whose father one day took him to meet a sadhu in Kolkata. And in that sadhu's home, large house, there was kind of a garden in the center of it. Those days, the houses used to be kind of like a box shape. Still today, in some parts of Orissa, you find houses like this, where there's a courtyard inside the house. It was a very peaceful place, and they have a little bit of a garden there and whatever. So they went in there, and there was a sadhu there who was sitting by himself. And the young man commented years later that this old man, he was very disturbed, and I was disturbed watching him because he was calling for someone to come, and they weren't coming. And he was calling and calling in a very intense way, and they weren't coming. Well, that sadhu was Bhaktivinode Thakur, and that calling was his japa. He was so vexed, and what he's doing is it's not just a mechanical thing, but it's something from the heart. So we need to merge our mind and the mantra together. And if we do that, then the Yoga-sutras describe that we fix our mind and our consciousness in yoga in this way, then tada drasu sarupe vastanam. Then at that time, we'll understand what is our Sarup Siddhi, what is our spiritual nature. That's a basic building block principle of consciousness described in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So now I'd like to go to a little bit of an adventure in the 12th chapter of the Harinam Chintamani, because we're speaking about citta and how that real yoga means to fix the citta, and how Narottam Das Thakur here in the song he sings sadhana bhavi bijaha siddha-deha pabataha, that we'll understand our siddha-deha what consciousness we have, what we're absorbed in our Nama-bhajana. So let's go now and look at some of the distractions which are spoken about in the Yoga Sutras, and in a general way, but more specifically from Bhaktivinode Thakur and Harinam Chintamani, chapter 12. Anavadhaniki pramada bhole. That what is this pramada called? It's anavadana, inattentions. He says, pramada anavadana e mula artha. That this inattentiveness, iha hoite gati prabhu shakaleganata. This is the mula artha. This is the root from which all different anarthas come. Shakale anartha. All of our different problems of our citta, when we're not focusing, when we're not paying attention. So here he speaks about two things, anavadana, and I've given a few different synonyms here. Anavadana means to be inattentive, to be careless, or to be remiss in one's duty. In other words, I'm not chanting the way that I promised my guru. I didn't promise my guru that I would chant 16 rounds of Nama-parad. I promised my guru I would chant 16 attentive rounds. And pramada, being intoxicated, is the first meaning. We're intoxicated by thinking, I am this body, I'm a beautiful woman, I'm a handsome man, I'm a great scholar, I'm a wealthy person, I'm a manager, I'm a this, I'm a that, which is all madness, insanity. Pramada also means to be neglectful or careless. Means an error and a mistake. And then Bhaktivinode says, Tina prakar anavadana. This anavadana, this inattentiveness, there's three aspects of it. Odasinya, Jadya, or Vikshepa, 18. These are the three aspects. Odasinya, Jadya, and Vikshepa. Odasinya, indifference, apathy, disregard. Jadya means something material. I'm sitting in front of a table, so I can knock on the table. The table is jadya. It's just a dull thing. It means being in the mode of ignorance. It means having a lack of focus in my japa. And vikshepa means to be distracted. And so then Bhaktivinode goes on to explain, and Harinam Chintamani, I forgot to add the Bengali for the subtitles, but we'll still just go through. And first of all, he speaks about what is the aspect of odasinya, isn't it? A jadya. This jadya or inertia. Jadya ye anavadana alasira mani. Lasa is the same word used in the Yoga-sutras too. Tahi ruchi nahi hoy Sri Nama-bhajana. So when we have this inattentiveness, this anavadana, which is due to jadya, or some laziness of the mind, then what happens is tahi ruchi nahi hoy Sri Nama-bhajana. So many devotees always say, Prabhu, how can I get nam ruchi? That's what you ask after you're chanting japa for a few days, and it's like, oh my God, I have to sit down for 2 hours or more and do this. And it's just not fun at all. And in our mind, because we don't have any taste, and because due to this jadya, this laziness of the mind, this inertia, this stupidity of the mind, the mode of ignorance, then our mind's going here and there. So Bhaktivinode goes on. So Smriti Kali Puna Shigra Vikrame Prayas E Doshe Nama Rasa Nahoy Prakash. So if someone remembers the holy name, a lazy person, while remembering the holy name, while they're doing a Smriti Kali at that time of chanting, Shigra Vikrama Prayas, the word Shigra means very quickly. Virame Prayas, they give up trying. And that lack of effort, when we stop trying, we stop making some endeavor in our chanting. A doshi, this fault, nama rasa nahoy prakasha, this keeps us from getting a taste in the holy name. Anya karye britta kala nahoya yapana, sadhu gana iha chinti smari anukshana. So this is the nature of sadhu gana, saintly persons. Iha chinti smari anukshana. They don't want to waste even a moment. And so whatever time they have, anya karya britta kala nahoya yapana, they're always chanting and remembering. That's a vyata kalatvam. That's a characteristic of someone who's achieved the level of bhav. And Bhaktivinode explains more about that in Bhajan Rahasya. Nama smare rashi maje anya nahi chai she rupa sadhu shange e dosha jai. So those sadhus, when they're absorbed in the holy name, nam rasa, they don't want anything else. They're very, very peaceful, and they're not disturbed by anything. That's real yoga. That's the real situation by which someone comes to realize their siddha-deha. So how do we overcome that? Anveshiya se rupa sadhu sangha kore tarunukarane citta jajya parihare. We should look for devotees who have this quality. Namasmari rasi maji anyat nahi chai, who are absorbed in the taste of the holy name, who don't want anything else. For them, that's everything. And how do we please those devotees? By chanting the holy name, because they don't want anything. They're simply happy with the holy name. You go and you give them $100 million, but you're not interested in chanting. They're not very impressed. But I remember one of my godbrothers came in to see our Guru Maharaj, and he gave him something like 30,000 US dollars from some collection he'd given. And Guru Maharaj just took it and put it in the drawer and said, yes. Well, he didn't even say thank you. and the devotee was so shocked. Guru Maharaj is taking this and is not. Other times I saw Guru Maharaj, once somebody offered him, gave him 2,000 rupees, which is like nothing. And Guru Maharaj said, oh, is this okay? Can you do this? I said, yes, Guru Maharaj. You're a householder. Can you afford this? No, I can do this thing. But what he wanted was not money. What he wants is the holy name, and he wants to see other people chanting the holy name. So when we understand, first of all, that I'm sick, that I have this jadya tendency, I'm sitting and chanting, and I'm not even trying. I'm just giving up trying. And therefore I'm not getting a taste from the holy name. Then I should go and chant japa with the devotees, but especially with devotees who are very serious and who have some taste. And Bhaktivinode Thakur comments that it's not easy to find such a person. He may have to travel far and wide. Avyata kalatva dharma sadhura charitra dekile tahate ruchi haibe nischita. And this is the nature of a sadhu, to not waste even a moment's time. And when someone sees, when you see someone who actually is like this, you feel so very, very happy. This is a real sadhu. And then at that time, and as that association, mani habe aha kabe ihara saman, you think, wow, when can I be like this? Smari be gaibe nama hoya bhagyavan. When am I going to be bhagyavan and very fortunate that I can remember the holy name like he's doing all the time? Say ta utsaha asi Allah seramani jadya dura kore Krishna namara smarani. He's saying, when will I be fortunate? When I come in contact with someone like this, it's like there's a video some of you may have seen, a very short video someone took of Gopal Krishna Maharaj. While he's sleeping, you can see his hand moving, and he's offering artik. He was so absorbed in offering artik. He was so absorbed in chanting the holy. I saw it with my Guru Maharaj. Sometimes traveling with him, I would sleep on the floor, sometimes under the bed that he was sleeping in. We're traveling, and in the middle of the night, he'd be Krishna, Krishna. He's calling out the names of Krishna. So when we see someone who's like that, then we think, wow, I want to associate with such a person. When by that association, by desiring to develop those qualities, say to utsaha means some enthusiasm, that associating with that person brings me some enthusiasm. I'll say Allah money, and that alasa, that laziness of the mind, that jadya dura kori Krishna namara smarana. It gives me some inspiration to give this up and to be focused when I'm chanting Krishna's names. Mani habe aja laksha nama jay koriba, krami tina laksha nama jay smariba. And when the mind comes to this point, then I think that I'm going to chant so much, and I want to chant 1 lakh a day, and then maybe krami, little by little, tina lakshanama jay smariba. Maybe then I'll chant 3 lakhs a day. So we spoke about this also in one of our previous sessions, just to look back, about 1 lakh of japa and 3 lakhs. Actually, Bhaktivinode Thakur both recommended and instigated chanting 4 rounds a day as a general standard. And the vast majority of disciples, both he and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati initiated, were chanting 4 rounds a day. And I know that from speaking. I had the good fortune, probably I've met 6 or 8 different disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta over the years. And a few of them have been very kind to me and very affectionate to me. And speaking, but Srila Bhaktisiddhanta famously stressed chanting 1 lakh a day as a minimum. And the apparent contradiction is resolved in that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that you should be constantly chanting while you do service, while you're cooking, while you're doing carpentry work, while you're going out for book distribution. Whatever you're doing, you should be chanting constantly. Mahagraha habe chitte namera sankyaya achire jaibe jadya sadhara kripaya. So by contemplating like this, by thinking I should increase my chanting like this, the way these great sadhus are doing, we'll develop some enthusiasm. Our chitta will be absorbed in that. And we'll want to namira sankyaya, we'll want to chant my fixed number of rounds with great enthusiasm. And by doing that, then we'll overcome this jadya, this lethargy, that we're just this passiveness, that, oh, I'm chanting, but I'm not really there. I'm not thinking about anything that we're doing. If we contemplate on the matter, attentiveness is the essential quality in all relationships, whether it's a boy and a girl, a girlfriend and a boyfriend, or a parent and child, or a teacher and a student, or two friends, or guru and disciple, or Krishna and the devotee. That attentiveness is of how we show our love. And when we're not attentive, then we can't overcome that. So this jajya, he says, it comes from kanaka kamani arajaya parajaya. It comes from this desire, from kanaka kamani, from obtaining money, from sex, or pratishta satya vritti tahara milaya. Parajaya means to have some victory and defeat. I was defeated by someone, Jaya. Because in Parajaya, I was defeated by someone and I become depressed by that. Or Jaya, yeah, I had a really good debate on Facebook and man, I smoked that guy. I kicked his butt, you know. And that breeds this jajya. Pratistasa, some desire for position and power, satya, from some satya vritti, some dishonest money. Esaba akristi hirdi. So when we have these thoughts, they're pulling on our heart, on our mind. Hoile udoy, namete anavadana sabhavite hoy. So at that time, we become inattentive to the holy name. Jiva Goswami describes in Bhakti Sandarbha that why is it Krishna Katha is such a nice thing? Why is it that some people are not interested in Krishna Katha? And he says it's because they have to make money. Think, oh, I can't stay here for this thing. I have something more important to do. I have to do management. I have to make money. And then they can't be absorbed in it. We can't be absorbed in the holy name. If we're absorbed in Kanaka Kamani, Arajaya, Parajaya, Pratisha, Satya, Vritti, we're absorbed in these things, then we're naturally, our mind is going to go to Jajya. So then he speaks about Vikshepa and how to overcome that, which the translator just gives a synonym of scattered mindedness. The mind is going scattered in a very big way. Vikshepa hoite jay pramada udoy. Bahuyatni say aparada hoik shoy. So that inattentiveness which comes from scattered mindedness, that's an offense that only we can overcome bahuyatna by great endeavor. And it has the same difficulties. He spoke about before, the same verse. That this kamika kamani. So how to overcome this? Krame say sabha chinta parihari, jati be sobhagyavan Vaishnava achari. So we have to take up the Vaishnava achar, the Vaishnava way of life. And one by one, krame, in a gradual sequence, our chitta, we give up our chinta, our concentration, our abandoning, our focus on thinking about these things. And so bhagyavan, we develop a auspicious form of life, of following Vaishnava Acharya. And this is Srila Prabhupada's purpose in creating temples. Pratamete haridine bhoga chinta chaji sadhu sange ratu dine harinama bhaje. So we begin this thing by giving up thoughts of sense pleasure on special days like Haridini. Haridi means like Ekadasi, in Janmashtami and Gaura Purnima, etc. And Sadhu Sange Ratnardini, day and night, Harinama Bhaji, we chant the holy name of the Lord in association with devotees. Hari Chaitra, Hari Dasa, Hari Shastra Loy, Utsave Majibe Suke Paramanibai. And then if we associate it, we go to a sacred place like Jagannath Puri or Mayapur or Vrindavan that's associated with Krishna. And they're in association with the devotees of Krishna and the Shastra speaking about Krishna. Then that's how we perform Ekadasi. That's the primary function of Ekadasi. And therefore, in the rules of Ekadasi and Hari Bhakti Vilas, it's described there that that fasting means different things. Fasting may mean that you're following your doctor's orders. Or fasting means that you don't take grains. Or fasting means that different things to different persons. And it's not that everybody has to fast. Old men don't have to fast. think after the age of 80 or something. Krami bhakta kala mana kori vardhana harikata mahotsave majaya mana. And so then gradually our mind is going to become more and more absorbed. Kori vardhana. Vardhana means just expansions of happiness. It's a harikata mahotsava. It's a great festival of Krishna Katha. And our mind becomes so absorbed in that. Shrestha rasa krame chitta, chitte hoibe udoy. And then this awakens in our consciousness, this udoy, some shrestha rasa krame chitte. Little by little in a sequence, our chitta becomes, it awakens some taste for Krishna Bhakti. And then at that time, jadad in the Krishna rasa charibe nishoy, this taste for material things will go away. Mahajana muke harisangita shravane mugdha habe manakarna rasha ashvadane. So when we hear the songs, harisangit shravane, one thing I sometimes comment on, devotees ask, what is the difference between ISKCON and other different Gaudiya groups? And one thing that I've observed, if you go to the Gaudiya Math or if you go to Babaji's or different temples in Puri and that, is that they sing so many songs. And we also sing, but we primarily chant Hare Krishna. And that's one of the great gifts of Ayendra Prabhu, which he's made popular, the chanting of Hare Krishna. He's encouraged so many people, we can do this. He's made it into something cool, and so many people do. But generally, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, when they do kirtan, they sing different songs. And Srila Prabhupada would do like that. He sang so many different songs. In the beginning, he mostly chanted Hare Krishna, because that's very simple for the devotees. And Ayendra Prabhu, doing 24-hour kirtan, that's what you sing. You chant the Hare Krishna mantra. But that's not the only kirtan. I know when we go to festivals with Trivikram Maharaj, I always so much appreciate, he sits down and he just sings 4 or 5 different songs. And he speaks about them. Fakir Marambo used to do it. My Guru Maharaj used to do that. That's a very traditional Gaudiya thing. Our minds become very absorbent, and then we chant Hare Krishna. Or if we're doing 24-hour Hare Krishna Kirtan, then we just chant Hare Krishna mantra for 24 hours. That's great. But there's a purpose. Bhaktivinode Thakur says we should sing these songs, especially we should sing the songs of Bhaktivinode Thakur. And if we do that, then Mugdha Habi Manakarna Rasha Ashvadani. Then what happens, Manakarna, Mana means the mind and Karna means the ears, they'll become very mugdha, they'll become completely bewildered and completely stunned by tasting asvadani, rasa asvadani, the mood of these mahajans. And then Nikrishta Vishaya Spriya Hoibe Vigata Nama-gane Chitta Stira Hoibe Avirata. And then at that time, all this Nikrishta Vishaya Spriya, all these inferior tastes, this Vishaya Spriya, these things, Spriya means something which comes up sometimes, the Vishaya, these material desires. Hoibe Vigata, they're going to be dislodged, and then our mind will become fixed. Chitta Stira, our chitta, our consciousness will be fixed in chanting the holy name. Ataeva bahu yatne e pramada tyaje, stira chitte nama rase chira dine maji. So we should be very careful to give up this fault of inattention and become fixed in the nectar of the holy name. So our chitta, stira chitta nama rase, Bhaktivinode Thakur, this is the same point which is being made in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, that we have to fix our chitta. We have to concentrate our chitta on one thing. So these are the obstacles for that concentration, and this is a solution for that concentration. And therefore, Jagadananda Pandit in Prema-bhakti-candrika, he says that Sadhu Sangha Krishna Nam E Matra Chai. There's only 2 things that I want, not one thing, but 2. Sadhu Sangha, Krishna Nam. You may say, what's the necessity of Sadhu Sangha? I'll just take Krishna Nam. But if you don't have Sadhu Sangha, then there's no question of having Krishna Nam, because Sadhu, you can't separate Krishna from his devotees. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said in one place, that if there's no sadhu, there's no name. So we have some name sometimes because we're associating with some persons who have some sadhutva, some qualities of being a sadhu. We want to associate with those devotees who are completely, totally fixed in the holy name and aspire for that association by which our mind and the mantra will become one. Mano madhyestito mantra mantra madhyestita manaha mana mantra samayittamita dijapa lakshanam. This is the lakshana or the characteristics of japa. When our mind and the mantra become one. And that mind and the mantra become one in our citta, as Bhaktivinode Thakur says in this last verse we're just reading, stira chitte nama rase chira dini maji. We become fixed when we taste the nectar of the holy name, when we're associating with great devotees and we're hearing from them, we're singing the songs from them, we're hearing Krishna Katha, and therefore, as we often comment, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that the internal potency, the internal nature of the holy name, the Swarup Shakti of the holy name is Krishna Katha. The Swarup Shakti of Krishna Nama is Krishna Katha. And just as you can't separate Radha from Krishna, you can't separate Krishna Katha from Krishna Nam. If we want to understand our Swarup, we want to understand, we want to develop our siddha-deha, as Narottam Das Thakur is describing in the song, we have to fix our consciousness. We have to fix our mind on the holy name. And we do that by being in association with devotees who have a fixed mind. Sadhani bhavi bijaha siddha-dehi pabataha. Raga pratira ese upai. This is the path of rāgānugā-bhakti, associating with devotees like this. So it's a great science. And again, you may think, well, gee whiz, this seems very complicated and all these technical terms and this and that. Do I have to memorize all these things? No, the purpose is not to memorize these things. Gorkishore Das Babaji is a great Mahatma, but what did he memorize? He couldn't read Sanskrit. He could read Bengali, and Prema-bhakti-candrika and Prarthana were his two favorite books. But he couldn't read the Bhagavatam on his own. But he got everything. So all that's required is Harinama, Harinama, Harinama Eva Kevam. All that's required is the holy name. But the problem is that our mind is so disturbed and we don't have faith in the holy name. So we're discussing all this philosophy and Yoga-sutras and things about the citta and the consciousness to help us understand that all you have to do is something very simple. That's all that's required. But because our minds are so complicated, then we're convinced, oh yeah, this makes sense. Now I've got it. Whereas just a small child can just pick it up and immediately start doing it. Start chanting. My Guru Maharaj told a story sometimes about one old lady and her daughter-in-law. They went one day to hear some Krishna Katha, and they left their village. They had to go to some distance to hear from this Krishna Katha, this program that was going on. And when they were going there was a river which was going into the ocean. And when they came to the river, the water was very low. And there's tidal rivers. There's several rivers that go into the ocean in Jagannath Puri. Depending on the tide, the water in the river can be very high or it can be very low. So when they went, the water was very low, and they went there, and the speaker was glorifying the holy name, the Krishna Katha. He said, just chant Hare Krishna, and you'll cross over the ocean of material existence. And so after they heard that, the daughter-in-law, she started chanting Hare Krishna, and just chanting and chanting. And they were going back to the village that night. When they went back, now all of a sudden the water was very high, and it was up to their neck, and maybe they had to swim. And they were going across, and the mother-in-law, she started to drown. And help me, daughter, she called out. And her daughter-in-law said, don't you remember, didn't you hear what he said? With the speaker crossing this river, we can cross the ocean of material existence. Just chant, take shelter of Krishna's name. And my Guru Maharaj would tell that story, and then he would ask the question, what was the difference between those two ladies, between that elderly lady and her daughter-in-law? The daughter-in-law had the qualification of simplicity. And therefore, Chanadapi Sunichena, this is our siddha-pranali mantra. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that thing. How is Chanadapi Sunichena our siddha-pranali mantra? That's our next session. I want to speak something about that and how by practicing this Trinadapi Sunichena, it fixes our citta, which is a process of yoga, and thereby it helps us to understand, it gives us qualification to understand our siddha-deha. And if we don't practice that Trinadapi Sunichena, then we can't get that. And therefore, it's our siddha-pranali mantra. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. If anybody has any comments, reflections, it's very thick today. I'm sorry, there's a lot of philosophy and things. That's why I like to show it on the screen also, so devotees can kind of contemplate on it while we're going past. Jai Gaur Prabhu comments, he says, you mentioned that the Sishya should become Anubhav, following the mood of the Guru. You also speak about how we want to be Anusar, not Anukor. Anukor means to imitate, Anusar means to follow the Sara, the essence. So it seems like a disciple can be internally embracing the mood of Guru, but externally he may not be the perfect yes man. Maybe he's criticized and not understood, although he may be closer to the mood of Guru than somebody who is externally following all the rules and everything to a T. Can you share your thoughts on this, please? Yeah. So neophytes, we have a saying in America, monkey see, monkey do. So we act like monkeys, which is anukor, where we're imitating something and we think that that's the essence of things. But what we really want is to be anusar. Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers, some of them couldn't understand what Srila Prabhupada did. Some of the Babajis at Radhakund, who are Vaishnavas, who greatly appreciate the chanting of the holy name and are happy to see the holy name spread all over the world. But when they saw and heard that Srila Prabhupada left Vrindavan, and he went to New York City, and he started associating with wealthy people, and they were having ladies living in the temple. The Babajis couldn't understand, and Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers also couldn't understand. How is it ladies are living in the temple? How is it he's giving them Gayatri mantra, etc., and letting them give class sometimes and things? How is Prabhupada giving yavanas and malechas, people born in those kind of families? How is he giving them sannyas? They couldn't understand that because they're more anukor. They're seeing the external things. Now, just as a little comment, none of us like fanaticism. A friend of mine recently posted something on Facebook, a list of symptoms of someone who's a fanatical devotee. And one of the symptoms is that they say, "Oh, this sandwich, who cooked this tofu? It was made by some non-devotee," and then they eat around the tofu. They don't actually take that. And the devotees are laughing at this as a kind of fanaticism. But I read that and I thought, well, I don't like anukor, blind following, imitation. But there's also culture. And if I told you we don't appreciate if someone doesn't want to eat something from other people, we think that's fanatical. But I know one lady, she left her body in her 90s, and she's in the Vallabha Sampradaya. She's the grandmother of a few of my godbrothers. And that old lady, for like the last 70 years or something of her life, she wouldn't accept cooking from anyone. She only cooked for herself. And that's a very, very high-class thing. Now, some people will say that's fanatical. But the activity is not what's fanatical. What's fanatical is the consciousness that it's done in. If you go to the temple of Tota Gopinath, they don't allow, if you walk in there wearing a lungi, they won't let you. I've seen it on one time. Krishnadas Maharaj Mahant kicked someone out, a Grihastha man, because he was wearing a lungi. Because lungi in Vaishnava culture means someone who's either a Babaji or they're a sannyasi and they have some installed kopans, because it's considered to be offensive to the earth. Therefore, we have a kacha, a tail, in our dhoti. There's a reason for that. But blindly, we either imitate wearing a lungi. Oh, Ayendra Prabhu did that. That's cool. Or we blindly imitate wearing a dhoti. We keep this finger out of our bead bag. Why do we do that? Well, it's a bit anukor. We're just imitating, but there's a reason for it. In Ayurvedic medicine, this finger has a name. It's called bish. What is it? It's the poison finger, the bish finger, because this is a finger that you use to point at someone and criticize them. Bishangul. Thank you, Jagoy. This is the Bishangul. So we keep it out of our bead because it has no place there, because Tribanga Bangima Rupam Venaranga Karanchitam Gopi Mandala Madhyastam Shobitam Nanda Nandanam. There's a Ras Leela going on inside of our bead bag, 108 gopis in Radha and Krishna, and they're going around and around. And this Bishangul has no place there. So we can say, oh, you're just being a fanatic to keep your finger out of your bead bag like that. I wouldn't necessarily agree. It depends on the consciousness and the purpose that someone is doing it. So we should be anusar. I'm trying to remember the name of the sadhu. Gosh. He's not, he's one of the, he's a Ramanandi sadhu who, Bhaktivinode spoke to me about him. I read some biography of him years ago too. Anyway, he reestablished the Brajamandal Parikrama. And I'm going to sit a Haripum coming in just a moment. And he worked very, very hard. He had to collect money, donations to feed all the pilgrims, all the yatris, and he had to organize things, and he was always doing management in that. And because of that, some devotees were critical of him. And they thought, just see, he's not, Gurudev is just doing Nama-bhajana. But this devotee is running around collecting money. And he's dealing with grocers and people buying vegetables and things and dealing with cooks and all those complicated things. He's not like Gurudev. And he's just a bogus person. Observing their envy of that devotee, one day, that sadhu was sitting at the fire, and the Ramananda sadhus, they have like an iron bar that they carry. It's a complicated thing. He had that iron bar in the fire until it was glowing red hot. And he called for that leading devotee who was organizing the parikrama one day, and he started beating him with that bar. You nonsense, budmash, rascal, idiot, what are you doing? And beating it. And all the envious persons were very happy that, yes, just see, I told you, he was a nonsense. And a few years went by, and later that sadhu was leaving his body. And before he left his body, he called for that disciple who was organizing the parikramas. And the guru started crying. And he said, I beat you. But the reason I beat you was because I saw they were envious of you. And they couldn't understand you. And actually, that devotee was very close to his guru, although his guru was always doing Nama-bhajana and chanting, and the disciple was busy collecting money and organizing things and doing management and stuff. That disciple was closer to the guru. So that's my thought on your comment there, Jai Gaur. Let me go in that little down here. Siddha Hari Prabhu, do you want to share something? Can we see your smiling face there? We saw it for a moment. Wow.
Sorry, Babu.
Now my day's good.
No, I was cooking today. Today's my cooking day here at the ashram, so I didn't want to move around with the camera on.
You're at Harmony Collective in the kitchen there now?
No, I'm at the farm, Goloka Eco Farm. Yeah. And you have mentioned a couple of times that you may be coming in September. This is an off-topic question, but you have shared your dates yet. What's happening? What's the good
Prabhuji,
news?
I'm a very unfortunate person. We were going to go to Ukraine later this month, and their devotees are literally cry when you come. They literally cry. They greet you and they're crying because they're getting bombed and killed, and to have someone come to visit them means so much to them. It meant the world to us. They invited us to come, but I can't even leave Hungary right now. It's a little complicated to explain, but because I'm getting a new passport, and I have to apply for a new residence permit, and I can't leave Hungary for like.
Well, we're talking about
70 days or
September,
something.
not even June. I'm talking about September. It's months.
Anyway, I have to look at our schedule, but I think we're probably, not 100% sure, but probably going to be in Europe at that time. But it is possible if we got tickets or something. Because we just found out we're gonna. Usually we've been going to Germany every year for Janmashtami, but this year we're not going to go there. So we're trying to figure out where we're going to go for Janmashtami.
Okay, I'll message you separately about Janmashtami in USA. I get the hint. My comments on your katha, you mentioned those 5 things from Hari Bhakti Vilas, like the Mana Samharna, and then after the Shorcham, then Maunam. I remember this year, or the last year, when His Holiness Sachinanda Sai Maharaj, he did the Holy Name retreat. He focused on those 5 things. His whole class, he was like you were mentioning, that's a result of chanting Hare Krishna. He was taking it the other way. He was saying that we should practice these 5 things in order to have a deep experience with the Holy Name. So he presented it that way in his seminars. That was a comment.
The things are like in a circular way, just like I grew up on we had a house at one point that I grew up in as a young boy. We had no electricity and we had no running water. We had a tea well outside and we used to go and pump that well. And I often comment on this, that I learned that you could go out there and pump that well all day long, 24 hours a day, and not get one drop of water out. But we had to prime the well. And to get water out, you have to pour some water in. And by pouring water in, then it goes down into, there's a cup, and then the cup goes down because of the weight of the water, and it gets more water. So in the same way, we prime. From the holy name comes more holy name, and from more holy name comes even more holy name. Okay.
Thank you. That's a wonderful example. Makes more sense. A couple of questions. One is that 2 questions. One is that you mentioned that one should this is an advice of Srila in the Harinam Chintamani, the advice of Haridas Thakur or Bhaktivinoda Thakur is that one should associate with sadhus who have an amazing taste for the holy name, who chant the holy name with a lot of affection, a lot of care. So my question is twofold. One is that more personal question is that you got this opportunity to chant with His Holiness Gurukul Sai Maharaj, Guru Maharaj. If you can please share your experience of chanting with him and how did he used to chant the holy name. Of course, you quoted the example of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who's like a few hundred years ago, but here we also have what is like His Holiness Gurukul Sai Maharaj, who would chant, I hear, very intensely, and I'm sure I would request if you can share a few experiences of that. And second, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying that we should associate with sadhus who have such amazing taste for holy name and Krishna, now he doesn't make any differences based on institution. But lately, one devotee recently shared me this book written by His Holiness Shriram Swami Maharaj. Of course, it was written 20 years ago when the whole movement was in a broil, where he says that one shouldn't associate with somebody who's outside of ISKCON. And I wanted to hear your feedback on that, because we hear this, at least our acharyas, they don't make any difference based on institution. But here come 2020 or year, 1980s, 1990s, and we hear so much differences are being made based on institution that we don't find any of that in the Shastra. So how are we supposed to understand associating with sadhus in light of that?
Okay, that's nice and controversial. I like it. So regarding the first question about my experience with the chanting, first of all, because my consciousness is so much jadya, so dull, I'm just confessing before the Vaishnavas that my japa, I can't say that I was really hardly ever there with my Guru Maharaj. I used to chant japa with him sometimes, but his chanting was not just japa. Just like in the Krishna Balaram Mandir, there's 24-hour kirtan. It goes on 24 hours a day. But you may say, wait a minute, I was there during japa period. There was no kirtan going on. I was there during the Bhagavatam classes, no kirtan going on. Because Srila Prabhupada said that japa and Krishna Katha are also kirtan. That's also aspects of it. So I just saw your comment, Leela Purushottam. Yeah, I'll bet. So for me, with my Guru Maharaj, I remember some of my biggest experiences are sitting down in front of him and hearing Krishna Katha And I felt like it was an amazing, I felt like I'm sitting in a cold room and there's a window open in front of me and the warm rays of the sun are coming down on my body. And the window is an open window to the spiritual world. And the sunshine of the spiritual world is coming down on me. And just, I became mugdha, actually. Some of Guru Maharaj's classes, our mind just became completely blown. I'd never heard anybody speak like that. And what to say, speak about like that, I've never seen anybody who who could speak in a realized way like that. And so that made me mugdha, as Bhaktivinode Thakur says when we come around. And the second experience I had, I remember one experience comes to my mind right away. It was the last Nityananda Trayodasi in Bhubaneswar. And Guru Maharaj had just gone to Gadagiri a few days before that, maybe 3 or 4 days before that. He privately told someone that I'm thinking to leave this world early. Just as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta left early, I'm also thinking to leave early. And I'll go and I'm going to ask Gopal what to do. And so then he went to Gadagiri. We don't know what happened. If anything, I have no idea what happened between him and Gopal. He prayed there. But while he was in Gadagiri, he saw his cousin brother, Gopinath Giri, and he told him, he said, you'll see the opening of the new temple for Gopal, but I won't see it. And he said, what are you talking about? I'm older than you. No, you'll see it. I won't. And then he came back to Bhubaneswar and he signed over his bank account to the temple president, which he'd never done before. And he gave his last class, which was that kirtan on Nityananda Trayodasi. And that kirtan, if you look around the room, everybody was crying. It was just such an emotional, amazing kirtan. That's kindness when we can associate with personalities like that. And that's really what bhakti is all about, to associate with them directly. And when we can't have that physical association, to try to please them, understanding they're still present by following instructions, by trying to behave in a way that they'll be pleased. But with which way to do that, of course, is to chant the holy name. And so, is that all right? First question? Okay, second question. Well, first of all, let's look a little bit into the heart of Srila Shivaram Maharaj. He spoke some things very similar to what my Guru Maharaj also spoke. My Guru Maharaj spoke very heavy, don't leave ISKCON. And he spoke it so many times. But at the same time, I was with my Guru Maharaj, for example, in Washington, in Oregon State in 1994. And we introduced him to Bhaktinandan Swami, who was outside of ISKCON. We took him to visit Tripurari Maharaj, and Guru Maharaj was very happy to see both of them. Srini Ketan Das Babaji used to come to visit our Guru Maharaj, who's not an ISKCON devotee. He loved our Guru Maharaj so much. He was very appreciative. The Guru Maharaj also spoke very heavily, don't leave ISKCON. I've observed over the many years of visiting different sadhus, and the only reason I visit different sadhus is for service to my guru. But I had the good fortune to meet Anantadas Pandit at Radhakund, very wonderful, such a sweet, gentle, loving sadhu, who was very attached to the holy name and great scholar. I went to ask him some questions about old Shiva lingas around Radhakund, and he gave some nice answers and things. But I observed in their Sangha there that he, and I saw this with many different sadhus, Narayan Maharaj and many different persons, that they all tell their disciples, don't go outside. Don't go here, don't go there. And I give the example sometimes of parents with a 3-year-old child. And the parents, they tell the child, don't go outside the yard. There's a fence around the yard. Don't go outside the fence. The 3-year-old child is restless and wants to run around and play. And the child says, well, why not? And then the parents, rather than try to explain to them that you might get hit by a truck, someone might kidnap you, someone might hurt you, someone might do that, you might get bit by a dog. There's so many things may happen to you. Instead of trying to explain all those complicated things, which the child may not have faith in anyway, they just simply tell the child, because everyone on the other side of the fence is bad. And then I often, some of you have heard me use this expression, this analogy before. I like repeating this. So then the child, the 3-year-old child, sitting on and inside the fence, and when people go walking by, what does the child do? He shakes his finger at those people and says, "You're bad, you're bad, you're bad." And those adults, when they're walking by, they laugh and they smile. They think, this is very cute, this is very sweet. This little child is speaking like this, and I can understand why the parents have told him like that. Now, if that child grows up and is a 35-year-old man and he still doesn't go outside the fence because mommy told me I can't do that, and he's still shaking his finger at everybody on the other side of the fence, "You're bad, you're bad," that's sick. That's weird. My Guru Maharaj had many friends outside of ISKCON. Srila Shivaram Maharaj, he wrote that book about Siksha outside of ISKCON, discouraging devotees in the same way that Anantadas Panda discouraged devotees, the same way I heard Narayan Maharaj with my own ears once tell the devotees, when I leave this world, don't go here and there, you stay here. Everybody tells their disciples the same thing because they need to be nishta, but it doesn't mean they can't be friends with other people. Doesn't mean they can't even learn something from some other people. And a beautiful example I saw here in Hungary last year for the day of what was it? Ram Navami. No, it wasn't Ram Navami. It was Deepavali. They had an amazing, I started crying. It just blew my mind completely. They invited us, Krishna Kun and I, to take part in this Deepavali program at some fancy place in downtown Budapest. And they had, all the devotees had to wear like silk dhotis and saris and really dressed really, really nice. And you go there and they had some of the top cream of society of Hungary. In terms of politicians, in terms of there are people there who are TV personalities and broadcasters and radio personalities. They had musicians and dancers and singers. They had, I was sitting at a table, the top Jewish person in Hungary was there, and the top Lutheran church priest or whatever was sitting at our table. And these are all friends of the devotees. So what to speak of going outside of ISKCON, Shivaram Maharaj is cultivating friendship with Lutherans and Jews and Muslims and so many different types of people because it's a mature thing to do. When we become mature and we're fixed in our service to our Gurudev, then we might go and meet different people. We might even learn from them, and it's good. We can be friends with different people. Why not? In fact, I've sometimes found I feel closer friendship. I don't mean to be offensive, but I've found closer friendship, camaraderie sometimes with non-devotees or with Damodar Maharaj sent a Muslim couple some years ago to Jagannath Puri. They were friends of the devotees, but they were hardcore Muslims. And they wanted to visit the holy Dhamma, Jagannath Puri, and understand something about Krishna in Jagannath Puri. They were doing the namaz, I don't know, 5 times a day, whatever it is they do. And they were also going to Tota Gopinath temple with us and having darshan and taking prasadam and chanting Hare Krishna. And they were so cool, that couple. And we had such a great time talking with them. We had one Christian minister, Damodar Maharaj also sent him to Puri. Same exact kind of thing. He was on his way to an interfaith meeting in Mayapur. He liked the devotees, but he's a Christian missionary or a Christian priest. And not a priest, actually, but a Christian pastor. I'm not very conversant with all the titles. He's a Christian pastor. And we had such a great time. I learned from him. I was asking him questions about Christianity and things. So I'm going outside of ISKCON. I'm associating with a Christian. But I can do that because hopefully I'm more than 3 years old. And I'm going to be fixed with my Gurudev. And I don't go anywhere where they're going to criticize my Guru. I don't want to see their face. I don't want to see the face of anyone who's going to criticize ISKCON or Prabhupada's mission. We have our problems. Thank you very much. I have problems in my family also. But it's not your business to criticize my family. And I don't want to hear that from you. But I can hear it from my family members. So I can associate outside like that. But the other point is also, what is really ISKCON? My Guru Maharaj stressed that. And you've heard me probably say so many times, Guru Maharaj said, what is ISKCON? ISKCON is the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Who's really a member? Someone who's Krishna conscious, he would answer. And then one time he pointed at me and said, Madhavananda, not yet joined, because I'm not Krishna conscious. So to be a member of ISKCON is not just that I'm in the physical walls of this temple. And I may have different friends, and I have a lot of friends in Puri, and I love some of them. And some of them are Mahants, or if you ever met Sriniketan, Srinivas Maharaj at the Siddha-Bakul, he is the sweetest, most kind-hearted. He comes and offers obeisances to all the devotees when they come. And he's the Mahanta, he's the Guru, Acharya, but he's such a sweet, loving person. And I'm sorry, but he's my friend. And I'm not embarrassed by that, but I understand the principle that my Guru Maharaj gave and that Shivaram Maharaj is giving, and it's an important principle. It's the same principle that I see the Babaji saying, the Gaudiya Math devotees saying. Everybody says that, and there's a reason for it, because 3-year-old children shouldn't just go running around. If we go running around, you think, I'm going to hear from this person and that person, I'm so cool, you just become very confused. You stick with your guru, because your guru is Krishna's representative for you. And your guru knows your heart, and he can help you. I stay within this ISKCON society. I have a lot of friends. I had one friend who was with me in the Los Angeles temple in 1982. And I hadn't seen him in like 30 years, 40 years or something. And one day he contacted me. Hey, how's it going? This and that. And I'm in Bhubaneswar. And it turns out, he said, I'm at Radhakund, and I've got a long beard and long hair now, and I'm initiated in the siddha-pranali thing. And then that's cool. He's my friend. Right? He's my old friend. But why did he contact me? He had a problem. His problem was that he said, I need to get a visa. And can you help me? Can ISKCON help me to get a letter so that I can get my visa? And I told him, I'm really sorry, Prabhuji, but we can't do that. ISKCON, you have to be an active member in ISKCON, because the government comes and checks up on people. I said, why don't you try with some of the Babajis and ask them to get such a letter? Oh, no, they won't do that. They don't understand me. And it was at that time I appreciated, he was able to do something that most people can't do, most Westerners. He's able to go and live at Radhakund in a very austere condition and associate with Babajis and people who don't speak English for the most part and have a very extremely different cultural background. And he could appreciate them and love them and somewhat fit in with them. But I also saw that when it came down to having a visa, then he wanted to come back to ISKCON. There's this purpose that Srila Prabhupada created all these rules and regulations and management and things. It's practical. It's a practical thing. I'm learning this now in Hungary because I couldn't get my visa to go back to India. It's a practical thing. Our society is there also for practical things to help devotees. And what part of the practical thing is they can relate to Western devotees. Where I've been at Krishna Das Maharaj at Tota Gopinath Temple, doesn't have a clue about Westerners. He can't understand us at all, but he's a wonderful Vaishnava, but he just can't understand Western devotees. And there's so many who can't, and I don't blame them because they're born and raised in India. But in this society that Prabhupada created, it's practical for us, and it's practical for our bhajan. So some of my thoughts about some of that controversial subject. What does it mean to be in ISKCON? For me, it means to serve my Guru Maharaj and to serve my Param Guru, Srila Prabhupada. That's the primary thing of it. And I have friends here and there, but it's not just we should try to do that because it's cool or something. Well, Madhavananda has some friend like that, so I should also do like that. It can be really dangerous. And I've had also, very rarely, but I've had some bad experiences with people wanting to say bad things about Prabhupada or even my Guru Maharaj. And I just got up and walked out that moment. And I can't tolerate that. Anyway, I don't go for Hari Katha at different places. I have Hari Katha, thank you very much. I'm here because I'm wanting to do service for my Gurudev. Okay, anybody else want to share anything?
Thank you, Vadana Prabhu. I want to just first thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for being in a tight spot and helping me understand this tough subject matter. Thank you for discussing so many intricacies of it. I really appreciate.
Well, thank you, Prabhu. You said, you know, it's a controversial thing. And you're asking me, so I gave an answer like this. But if you ask your temple president or you ask some other GBC devotee, they may say in a very different way. And it's not that I'm right and they're wrong or vice versa, but it's a personal understanding. And that's what bhakti is all about too, ultimately.
But Prabhu, I have faith in you that you're representing Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas honestly and transparently. So that's why I asked you. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else want to share anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. So wonderful to be here and listen to you.
Wonderful to have you.
Thank you. Prabhu, I had if I'll be able to express my question properly, but when you were speaking about inattention and the 9 aspects of inattention accompanied by grief, my mind was somehow going towards sometimes, we are involved in projects, and some of those projects, maybe it is, taking care of a big sangha, and we all know what that entails, so many headaches, managing people, or even grief that we encounter because of, different behavior patterns that we have to deal with on a regular basis. So is that like, at some point, is it a good idea? I mean, that's something what we are trying to do is sort of start to step back a little bit, because it seems that also could be an aspect of inattention, because it's continuously taking up so much mental space and heart space. And yet it is part of our mission. It seems like that's part of our sadhana practice, is to be involved and take on those headaches. So like I'm continuously struggling between the two, that on the one hand, in order to chant attentively, we need to create that space. But on the other hand, it seems that there is it's part of what we do. And so how do you put all of that together?
Bhaktivinode Thakur, I'm trying to remember this song, a beautiful song, is Tomara Sevaya Dukkha Hoya Jata Seyota Parama Sukha. He says that the problems that I experience in my service, those are my greatest happiness. Okay, we've all heard pep talks like that in ISKCON before. Go on and preach, and Prabhupada, he wanted to leave his body preaching in the West and things like that. That's okay. And certainly I respect that, and I'd also aspire for that. However, what is service? Service is not just something I do on the computer typing. Service is not just printing books, or service is not just making a Sunday feast program or distributing books, but my first service is my citta, my consciousness. And it's not that I have to go on and doing that forever and ever. Srila Prabhupada, many times in his purport, spoke about how at the end of his life, he was hoping that his disciples would take over the management and he could retire. It's a bona fide thing. Srila Prabhupada didn't really do that. He was translating right up until the last day and preaching right on his deathbed. But it's bona fide. Prabhupada told the devotees to do that. And I see that amongst some of the senior devotees in our society. I'm here in Hungary right now, and I see Shiva Ram Maharaj, Naranjan Maharaj is here visiting. Naranjan Maharaj is not seeing anybody. He's not talking to any, he has a servant, and that's it. No one's allowed to go to see him because he has such heavy health issues right now. And Shiva Ram Maharaj also has really cut himself off. And in my conversations with both of them, although I'm a very junior person, I really encourage them. I say, please, you would be such a beautiful example if you just retire and you stop traveling, you stop taking on all these headaches, and you give those headaches to some younger disciples, younger devotees, and you just take shelter of the holy name and Krishna Katha, and devotees can come and see you, or they can see you on Zoom or something. So in a similar way, we have this sense, we should be warriors for Srila Prabhupada, and we should die in the battlefield and all like that. But sometimes I think we have a little too much attachment sometimes to the externals, especially collecting the money, sometimes especially having some position, especially sometimes controlling other people and telling them what to do. And just like my mother, both my parents actually were school teachers, and we knew a lot of different teachers because of that. And I've seen it's a common phenomenon for people who teach like first grade or kindergarten. They treat everybody like children. They're just so used to being around children, they just treat everybody like a child. Or she can understand this also. It's people who teach all the time, they just keep teaching all the time. And so similarly, when someone's a manager and they're solving people's problems and that, they just get into that mode, and that becomes their identity, and they're always doing that. And that's not always favorable for our bhakti. We should just be who we are. But sometimes we're so attached to especially the collection of the money or having my position or solving people's problems, we can't let it go. But we should have probably called it lazy intelligence. Especially when we get a little bit older, we should give those services to other people. Is that helpful?
Very, very helpful. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Exactly. That's exactly what we're in the process of doing, creating systems and creating, committees and letting others take care of things, because our heart is not invested in the same way.
You've done so much, you and your husband, you've done so much preaching and things for so many years. And that's beautiful. But you don't have to like just run yourself in the ground doing that. You should also have a time. A period of our life, a Gambhira period of our life.
Yes, yes.
6/12. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life is 24 and 24. 24 years as a Grihastha, then 6 years as a traveling sannyasi, then 6 years as a sannyasi in Jagannath Puri, where he was training his lieutenants.
Oh.
The people were coming, devotees were coming every year for Rath Yatra, and he was training them and sending out Nityananda Prabhu and others for preaching. And then the last 12 years, he locked himself up in a little room with Sarup Damodar and Roy Ramananda. And by doing that, he's also teaching us that this is just practical. When you get older, I can't hardly sit on the floor anymore. It's hard for me. What to speak of so many other things. Let the young people do it and let them make mistakes. Yeah. Don't try to control them. Let them have their own ecstasy and do things in their way. And it'll be better than us in some ways and maybe worse, but we can give advice.
Yes, yes. Prabhu, this is very helpful, very encouraging, and that's our plan. And we hope to see you in India. I hope you can come back to.
We have, it's really complicated, a whole situation, and we have actually verbal comment that we're allowed to get our visas now back to India. But because our current passports expire in less than a year, we would not be able to get we'd only get like a 6-month visa or something. So we're applying for passports, but we'll stay long enough to do that. I also have to have a residence permit in Hungary to do that. I have to be here for 3 months, and it's all complicated, but we have some plan.
India is so tough. India is I didn't realize this, but India is very difficult with visas and I guess entry, right?
Yeah. Anyway, I learned a good lesson that we should be very careful and be proactive and just go along with the management and do what's needed. We thought we were doing that more or less, but we left it in the hands of other people. We trusted them, and they were the wrong people. I should have been more conscious of it myself. Anyway, thank you so much for your comments and things. Hare Krishna. Anybody else want to share anything? Otherwise, Leela Purushottam Prabhu, do you want to make some comments and we'll finish off with that? Leela's always got something.
Hare Krishna, bro. Yeah, I have not just now a direct realization of Vyadi distraction. Because my body
right now?
Yeah. So when you were speaking about it, I was thinking, I exactly know what's that topic about.
You have a flu or something?
Something like that.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Cough? Doesn't sound like it. Doesn't sound like you have a cough. It's not a lung thing.
No, not yet. it will come in 2 days.
Oh, you have COVID?
What?
You have COVID?
I don't think so. I didn't examine, but it's just something ordinary. It's some flu, and
Let me say, I'm not a doctor, but let me say a little medical thing, just real quick here. If you start to get any kind of cough or anything, please do two things. Please do this. Devotees are lazy. They don't like to, they just want to chant japa and be pure devotees, and they don't like to spend any time. Spend 10 minutes a day doing pranayama outside in the fresh early morning air. And the second thing is steam. Put a pot of water on the stove, maybe put some nice herbs or something in it, bring it to a boil, and then put a towel over your head and spend 3 minutes. Do that 3 times a day, at least twice a day, and breathe that steam. And we had COVID, and those two things are very, very powerful. Really, and there's medicines and all that other stuff. I'm not a doctor, but those two things are really, really powerful to really help you. Please do that.
I didn't want to bring attention to my body, sorry. And yeah, the only thing I can say today, it was a heavy wake-up call. And in that regard, I would really like you to comment on Subal Saka Prabhu's question that he written into the chat, because that's why it is wake-up call for me.
Yeah. I have a friend. Let me look on my phone here for a moment. Actually, I'll look on Facebook. I have a friend who wrote something really nice about this. I really appreciate it today. Let's see. Gosh, I can't find it now. Anyway, he just spoke about dopamine. I think it's how you say it, dopamine. I'm not so. It's this thing which is released in your brain when you do a lot of stuff with the cell phone and that, and it. What is it called?
Dopamine.
Dopamine, yeah. So you know about this thing already. And he'd read some article by some lady talking about how the cell phones and the computers and the Facebook things, it gives us dopamine.
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 Dopamine, yeah. It gives us dopamine and we become addicted to it. And this professional psychiatrist, she said, you just have to go cold turkey. You just have to practice abstinence, which sounds really like the Hare Krishnas. We just have to give it up. That's the weapons of mass distraction. I'm sorry, Subal Saka Prabhu already left, but I think he left. He was going to. But that's the only,
no,
Subal Saka Prabhu is still here. Hare Krishna. For myself, it's such a demoniac thing. And they're not demoniac exactly, but sometimes I'm chanting japa and then my phone beeps. And I pick it up and it's Bhakti Rupa or something. Hey, I need this or that for the bindu. Should this be? And it's like a real pressing thing. And I think, oh, well, I better answer him. And so then I answer that. And then all of a sudden, the next thing I know, it's like, an hour later, something. And I just got pulled away. So I'm really trying, on my phone, I use my phone every day when to recite some prayers, which I have on the phone before I chant japa. So I have it there in the beginning, but now I just want to, after I recite those prayers, I want to put the phone in the next room, lock it up in a cage, and just forget about it, turn it off for a couple hours and spend some time with Krishna. And spend time in that way with my Guru Dev. And we'll speak more about this. 1 or 2 more sessions we're going to go about the connection of the holy name and Guru and how Guru Dev is there in the holy name. And because I don't have any love for Krishna, but I may have some love, some feelings for my Guru because I met him, I spent time with him and things. And so if I can see him in the holy name, then I can be attentive in my chanting. So that's a really helpful thing.
Yeah, that confirms one thing I've heard recently. Might be actually quote by Bhaktivinoda Maharaj, actually. And he was asked like how to be attentive in the chanting with the japa. This answer I found really brilliant. The answer, he said, it's not a matter of anything artificial. Only when you chant with the sambandha, with the relationship, then you'll naturally be attentive. Because, you know, like as we are speaking now, it wouldn't come to my mind to just open the phone and, you know, look into the phone and not pay attention to you, because I have some relationship to you. So in that sense, if you mentioned that when you connect your chanting with your guru, and thus it's not just, you know, something imaginative or artificial, which might be in our not realized relationship with Krishna, then it's something more substantial, something more graspable immediately. So I'm looking forward for that session. Thank you for the teaser.
Thank you, Shamila. Thank you, Paul. Orsi, do you want to share something?
Yes, thank you, Hare Krishna. First of all, I would like to thank you this session again, because it's really, really important. And just observation from yesterday, that I was thinking, or I was realized that maybe when I have attention with the mantra, so I am attentive. In the first phase, maybe, so not maybe, it's like cultivating the impersonal feeling, because the stillness is something really impersonal. Any kind of form and information just come after that stillness, but it's really something just impersonal. Maybe this is one problem with devotees, that we are so afraid of any kind of impersonal realization that it's an obstacle to go through, because anything just come after that. Maybe I'm wrong, but that feeling was really something impersonal. But of course, I know my intellect know that there will be something personal after that. But I had to decide to merge with this feeling.
Some comments about that. There's different ways to chant. One aspect is that there's 6 different stages that we can go through. I speak about this sometimes. It's a kind of a big topic. And the first parts of that are a bit impersonal. And we just focus on the sound of the name. That's an easy thing in the beginning. We just hear the holy name. And that gives me something. But we should begin also by having some focus, some understanding what it is that I'm doing. Why am I doing this thing? There's 6 different stages. It's vachana, shabdaga, antagata, prarthanam, sevayam, vilapanam. And we often hear about vilap, or about crying. But the first thing is vachana. Vachana just means to pronounce. And that's kind of a bit impersonal. I like very much these prayers that we were sharing with the devotees before, that I begin my japa with Ananta Koti Vaishnava Gana, Ananta, offering of respects to all the different Vaishnavas and the Rasik devotees and things, because this is my purpose. I want their blessing. I want them to engage me in Krishna's service and Gauranga Mahaprabhu's service, and that's why I'm chanting. So that, in the beginning, is something like a sankalpa. It's something, a sankalpa means a focus. It's something you do in the beginning of your chanting. And we chant this mantra, Tribhanga Bhangima Rupam Venuranga Karanchit. And we offer obeisances to our guru, Panchatattva mantra, and we chant this mantra, which is the Malagrahana mantra. the mantra that you chant, you hold the mala with. And it just focuses, what am I doing? What am I dealing with? Bhaktivinode Thakur said, if we only realize one thing, we can just realize that Krishna is present. We can just focus on that one thing. This is my time with Krishna. I'm with Krishna. If I can just remember that one thing. So that's something we do. It's something of a sankalpa in the beginning. And the starting of that is something I'd say a little impersonal. After we begin chanting, and we can progress through that chanting. First of all, as vachana, we just pronounce Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And by pronouncing the syllables and focusing on the syllables, because those syllables are Krishna. Even maybe I'm not listening, and maybe I'm not crying, I'm not feeling it, but I'm just pronouncing, I'm focusing on the pronunciation. Because it is Krishna, then that helps me, and it helps focus my consciousness, but it's a little impersonal. And then from vachana, I go to shabdaga. Shabdaga means that I start hearing, focusing on that. And then I go to antagata. Antagata means I become a little bit introspective, and I try to understand, why am I chanting? I'm chanting because I want to please my guru. I'm chanting because this is my email. The chanting is a message that Guru and Krishna are going to speak to me if I read my email. So what message are you giving me? I want to listen very attentively. I want to be introspective and praying, please give me some realization. Please show me what I should do, where I should go for Janmashtami, what we should do. That's prarthanam. Then it's our personal appeal, and sevayam becomes a particular appeal for service in general. And then in particular, then vilapana means that we begin to cry in distress. So those are 6 different stages of our chanting, but it begins with this simple vachana, just pronunciation, just a little bit impersonal. Is that helpful?
Yes. Yes, thank you very much. It's actually, it was only a reflection, so it was perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Lila Purushottam Prabhu commented something here. And also Nikunja Biharani, she's thanking us, and she says that she likes this call for deeper and sincere bhajan after many instructions to do practical services. Lila Purushottam says, where's that Mala Grahana statement coming from, please? I've heard exactly the opposite once. What's the opposite?
Like that when you're chanting Panchatattva Maha Mantra, that you shouldn't touch the mala.
Mm-hmm.
It was the argument for, like, where is this habit coming from, and was it introduced by Prabhupada? And there was a whole discussion on it. And one of the arguments was that was supposedly quote of Prabhupada. I don't remember exactly. That when you say that mantra, Panchatattva Maha Mantra, then you should not touch the mala. I was surprised about it at that time, because we are so much used to it, actually. So if we would have directly stating that you should hold your beats when you're chanting it, that would make much more sense to our practice.
I don't recall that. I'd be very interested, because I collected some things about that. And also, I've collected some different statements from older devotees, from Bhakti Rupa Prabhu and Bhagavat Maharaj and different ones about that. It was definitely something that was introduced later on. It wasn't introduced by Srila Prabhupada. It wasn't practiced by Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada wrote a letter to Govardhan Das in 1973. Who is that rascal sannyasi who has recommended to chant Panchatattva mantra on japa beads? First send me his name. Maybe that's what someone was referring to. I don't know, but the Nam-grahana, the Mala Grahana mantra is given. Fakir Mohan Prabhu gave that to us, and later on I found that verse in. I can tell you in just a moment here. Actually, even show you if you want.
I believe it's quite obvious that the practice sprouted from Srila Prabhupada's Adi Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita, where he speaks quite a lot
Right.
about.
He says, but you should chant the Panchatattva mantra before we chant Hare Krishna. But he's not speaking about beads and japa in particular. He's talking in a general way. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's not like a bad thing. But personally, I'm not so enthusiastic about it because it wasn't something given directly by Srila Prabhupada. It was given by, and someone's guru may do that. That's fine, and that's not my business. Manohar Bhajan Deepika. Let's see here.
Deepika. What's that? Where is that from? Or
Manohar Bhajan. I'll show it to you on the screen here. This is a Manohar Bhajan Deepika in contents. So he's given all these mantras in there. This is a book which honestly is very popular amongst a lot of the Babajis, but he's given, like, he starts with the Mangalacharana and Guru Bandhana and Vaishnava Sarana and taking shelter of the Vaishnavas. But he's got these mantras here in this book also. He's got so many different mantras in it. It's a cool book. But I don't know who actually wrote these. Maybe that was written by Manohar Das himself. But they're nice. I just, it's not personally, I'm not attached to even where I got the mantra in this particular case, but I'm more attached to the concept of focus before I sit down and chant. And there's a series of prayers to first of all to Bhanga Bhanga Marupam, and then there's a prayer to the mala itself, to your japa mala, and there's prayers to dedicate to. There's a mantra for offering your japa, and recite that. That's my meditation. Not that the particular rituals and this exact verses or something, I don't see this so necessarily super important. I like them. I do that. I got that from Fakir Mahaprabhu, but it's more the concept that I think is really important. Okay. Yeah, we should go ahead and stop here then. So thank you all so much. Anybody else with any reflections, comments, questions before we stop? All right. Thank you all very much. And I think we'll see everybody next week. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinode ki, Go Prema-nandi Hari Hari Bol, Vancha Kalpa Tarubhascha, Kripa Sindhu